Let's learn about break statement in shell programming. So you must already be familiar with break statement. Break statement is actually a statement that break loops. So if you want to break a loop, you use the break statement. So let's look at this example. So here, right now here we have two loops. This is the first loop, this is the second loop. There are two loops here, and for a second, forget this two here. There is nothing written here, right? We just have this break statement here. So if you want to break out of this loop, there is a particular condition, and at that condition you want to get out of the loop. You want to break the loop. For example, this loop is, let's say right now this loop is running two times, actually, 0 and for 5. But let's say this loop was running, let's say 10 times, and after 3 times you want to get out of the loop for some particular condition, and you want to break it. For that you use this statement break. And when you write the statement, the loop is broken, this line, the control gets out, the loop is broken, and the next statement after the loop, that is run. That is what usually happens. So if this break is written, one loop will be broken. But we have a very fascinating thing in shell programming, and that is, after this break statement we can write any value, and we can break as many loops as we want in just single line, in one single go. So if I write 2 here, if I write 2, then 2 loops will be broken, not just one loop. So if you have written break 2, 2 loops will be broken, and the statement will, the control will come here. That means the next line after the second loop will be executed. So 2 loops are broken in one single statement. Let's say I had another loop here, for, and there was another loop here, and I wrote 3 here instead of 2. So what will happen? Obviously 3 loops will break. This control will go out of the third loop as well, and so on. If I have another for loop here and I write 4 here, this line will break all 4 loops. So as many loops as you want, you can break as many loops as you want. And the important thing is, always start counting the loops from inside. So this is loop number 1, this was loop number 2, right? This is loop 1, this is loop 2, this one is loop number 3, and this one is loop number 4. So always count them from inside. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Don't forget to do that. Okay, one more thing. Break and break 1, they both work the same way. So actually, just break by default means break 1. So if you haven't written anything here, it will mean 1, right? And if you write anything here, for example 2, 3, or 4, that many loops will be broken. I hope it was clear. If it was not, you can ask me and you can let me know about your questions. Okay, same goes for continue statement. So we just learned about break statement. Same thing is there for continue statement. Okay, break statement was there to break the loops, but what is the purpose of continue? So I will summarize it for you. If you're not familiar with it already, I will summarize what does continue mean. So continue does not break the loop, but what it does is it takes you to the next iteration of the loop. So for example, we have an array here. Let's say this array, this loop was on the third iteration. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, this loop was running. We have just one loop here, by the way, right now here, just one loop. So just for the sake of argument, let's say this loop was on the third iteration, and on some particular condition I wrote the statement continue. So the loop was on the third iteration, and when I wrote continue, this loop will start again. It will actually not start from the beginning, it will actually continue to the next iteration, which is 4. So the loop was currently on third iteration, and on continue it will go towards the 4th iteration. So it will continue to the next iteration, and all the statements that are written below the continue statement will not be executed. So whatever is written after continue is never executed. Rather, the control is just continued from that point to the next iteration, whatever that iteration is. Right? Okay, now let's understand continue in this context in shell programming. So the concept is exactly the same, but again we have the option to continue either one loop or as many loops as we want. So if I've just written continue, just the single loop will continue. If I've written continue 1 here, the same thing will happen. This loop will continue. But let's say I have another loop here, which is for. So I have another loop here. This is my second loop. And I wrote 2 instead of 1. I've written 2, right? So when I will write continue 2, instead of this first loop, my second loop will continue. So not this, but the second loop. So I told you to count from inside. So this is loop number 1. This is loop number 2. So when I write continue, then the second loop will continue. Similarly, let's say I have another loop and one more. So I have 4 loops, right? This is second loop, this is my third loop, this is my fourth loop. I think you can see it. This is my fourth loop. And let's say instead of 2, I wrote 4 here. What will happen then? If I write 4 here, the fourth loop will continue. This is loop number 1, loop number 2, 3, and 4. On writing 4 here, continue 4, the fourth loop will continue. And that means, for example, fourth loop is continued. So let's say this fourth loop was, let's say it was on 9th iteration, right? So, and these loops were on different iterations. Let's say this loop here, which is the first loop here. Let's say this was on 5th iteration, let's say. Okay, wait a second. Let's say this loop was on 5th iteration. And this loop was on the 9th iteration. So what will happen is on writing continue 4, all of these loops will be left and this statement will go towards the fourth loop, and that fourth loop, which was actually on 9th iteration, will go in the 10th iteration. And when it will start again from the 10th iteration, these loops, which is loop 3, loop 2, and loop 1, all of these loops will start from the beginning. This is a bit heavy to digest, so think on it again. When this loop will continue towards the 10th iteration, on writing this continue 4, this fourth loop will go in the 10th iteration, that is the next iteration. It will go in the 10th iteration. All of these loops will start from the beginning. So you can say continue statement kind of broke these for loops. It actually broke these loops and it went in the fourth loop. It's kind of like that. I know it is a bit confusing, but the best way to understand this is write a script and write different echo statements in that script at different points, and make at least 3 or 4 loops in it, and then write this continue statements many times in it. Like write continue 1 and then change it, make it 2, change it, make it 3, and then run it again and again and see the output. And that is the best way to understand this concept, if it's not already clear.